Hi everyone, welcome to episode 115 of the ITSM crowd. These numbers keep going up. It is astonishing to me. I age with every episode, but there we go. Welcome to today's episode. My guest today is the wonderful John Hibbs from Coefficient, and we have got such a fascinating topic to talk about. But I'm going to start by saying, John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Claire. Nice to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope it is going to be fascinating. Well, time will tell. So I'm live in Guernsey boy, born and bred, and is very sunny and wonderful here, living on this paradise island. I run a company called Coefficient, and what we do is we measure the organizational performance, but from the human perspective. And there's a very good reason why we do this, and it's because we believe that all businesses are groups of humans. And I've spent my adult life running small businesses and teams of humans, and so I'm really very aware of just how important their perception of what is going on is.
That's brilliant. Thank you. It's raining in York at the moment, so I could do with
sorry to hear that.
moving to a sunny paradise. So John and I connected recently and through Karen Ferris. So thank you, Karen, for making that connection. And the reason that I've invited John on today is because the conversation that we had linked so closely to a lot of the trends that are happening in the IT space and the IT service management space. So I'm thinking particularly about things like experience management, the focus on employee experience, implementing XLAs. So trying to add a human measure to what we do in IT. We've got the humanizing IT movement. There's a lot that's happening, which is more about how do people feel and not about uptime and servers in racks. So this is something that is very much a hot topic in IT at the moment. And it links so closely with what John's doing from the business perspective. I absolutely think that for our audience, what John's doing will give you some new ideas and some things to think about. And I can see we've got some people watching live today. So remember, you can ask John questions during this session as well. So pop them into YouTube chat. And we can bring them up on screen. So anything you want to ask, if you're watching live, please do pop that in. We would love to hear from you. So, John, talk to us a little bit about what you do. And I think the monergy concept I found a particularly interesting one when we were chatting.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, let's pull that up, and because it's quite a nice graphic, and I can talk a little bit about it, and it links really closely to what we do. Right, there it is. That's my monergy flow, subtitled "How to Make More Money, Surround Yourself with People You Love, and Make the World a Better Place."
Nice.
Because I actually believe that's what businesses are for, right? They're not just to make money. The idea that businesses are machines and that you're a cog in a business, and actually its sole purpose is, to make money and profit the shareholders. I think that way of thinking is dying out, and we have to. So I've, like I said earlier, I've run businesses my whole life, and what I've been acutely aware of is actually they're groups of people, right? And when those people perform really well around a shared purpose, everything just becomes easier. Everything. Clients are happier. Money seems to flow in really nicely. Mistakes are reduced. Now, you're always going to make mistakes because we're human beings, but actually they're kind of easier to deal with if you're working collectively together. And all those people kind of go home, don't they, at the end of every day? So as well, so there's a real tie in with communities. And what the monergy flow is trying to illustrate is that you can see my mouse here, can't you? I think, yeah. So most businesses are thinking about making money. I think it's absolutely right that they do, because if you make money, you can pay your staff. And when you pay a member of staff, you are contributing to a family very often. You also get to pay tax, which is amazing, because that goes to well, it is. It goes to like educating society, looking after us when we're sick, and creating that environment for us all to thrive. But money doesn't just turn up. You have to sell something to somebody. And we used to think of products and services as what we're selling. I think these days, really what we're buying and what we're selling are experiences.
Yep.
You even think about the products that we're using now to talk to each other. And for those of you watching, it's not that you bought a product, but it's giving you this experience. Now, listening to me rattle on. And, you know, so like our clothes, they're products, but we're actually inside them. To sell something to somebody, you have to tell them that there's something to buy, right? And you know, that's marketing. I think marketing's fascinating because telling people you have something to sell sets you up for what I call a transactional relationship. And transactional relationships are weak. You know, hey, I've got something to sell. Yeah, no problem. I'll buy that from you. The moment that actually someone else is selling a similar thing cheaper or slightly better, they're switching to someone else. And also, if you're not careful, you can end up with customers that don't really like you, and that's a complete disaster for businesses. So marketing for me isn't hello, I've got something to sell. Marketing is hello, here I am, and can you be courageous enough to be honest and authentic and genuine about who you are? I think if you are, then you attract the right type of people to you. Okay, so if you can stand on the street and say, this is me, this is what I believe in, people walking past will go, I like the sound of that, and they'll come over for a chat. And then you're much more likely to have made a customer who also becomes an ambassador. Companies realize how important that is, and this is why they have brands. B stands for brand. It's just a personality of the company. But of course, it's not, companies can't have personalities. They don't really exist in the same way that you and I exist. So it's the humans at the start of the chain of events. So, you know, businesses, I don't think, should focus on money. They should focus on humans. They should try to get a collection of humans around them with a shared purpose. Then you've got a really nice brand. The brand informs your marketing. It's clear who you are when you stand up on the street and say, hello, here I am. It means you can sell more stuff to more people who want to buy from you, make your money that way. I think then you should be reinvesting your money back into the humans with nurture, meaningful connections and love, because as human beings, we all love to feel love, but also to give love. And then guess what? You've got even better humans, better branding, even clearer marketing, sell even more stuff to even more people who want to buy from you, and spiral up we go. And the added benefit of this model is that you end up with happy humans, and happy humans go home to their families every day. Happy families create the happy communities, which is where you and I live. So it's businesses really, for me, should be a win-win-win model. You know, money goes where the energy flows.
I love it. And this is one of those things, I think, where you look at it and you think, this is simple and common sense and almost innately correct. So why doesn't every business do this?
Yes, good question. I don't have a simple answer for that. I think you really have to pause and take a breath, don't you? And stand outside of the chaos that is life. And life is complicated, isn't it? Like, you know, you've got businesses to run, you've got kids to look after, you've got technology that is continually going wrong and being updated and needs charging. And our life is surrounded by stuff that needs looking after. You have to give yourself some time to just step outside of that and say, right, well, what the frick is going on in life, really? Like what does it mean? And when we think about it conceptually, life is very simple, isn't it? We're human beings. That's all we are. We give ourselves special names, like, this business is for that group of human beings, and like families is another group, a name for a group of human beings, and education and government. It's all just people. It's all just people interacting and flowing between these groups. And why are we doing anything at all other than to try to enjoy our lives and look after the people we love?
Yeah, that is such a fair question.
Yeah, money does form a part of that because we want to look after people we love and ourselves, and also I've often wondered, you know, do businesses measure money because it's easy to measure money? I mean, it's really hard to measure how people feel and how secure and loved they feel, but those are the really important things. But it's much easier to measure money.
Yeah, and I think we see similar things in the tech space at the moment, because there is a real shift to try and measure outcomes over outputs. So it's not just, were our systems up, it's kind of what do our systems enable the business to do?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think, again, COVID changed so much, but one of the things COVID really affected was the old school presenteeism style of management. How do you measure and manage your employees if you can't see them? If you just measured them, well, did they come to the office on time? Did they stay late every day? If that's how we're measuring, then we're not measuring anything tangible. We're just measuring something that's easy.
Yeah, well, it becomes very difficult to measure trust, doesn't it? So you wouldn't have to measure output if you trusted all your staff.
Yeah.
It's difficult to trust your staff if they're not there for the same reasons that you're there. And this is why I think it's really important to have a very clear purpose about, like, I think we spoke about the party bus analogy last time, didn't we? I think
Yes.
and we see this all the time. So, let's imagine that Claire, you're the cool one who loves to party and make friends, and I'm the boring, sad one that likes to read books and be by himself. But we both live in the same town. It's amazing that we're friends, and we want to leave. We want to leave town because we want to experience something better. We're not quite sure what it is. The bus pulls up. We both get on the bus, and to my horror, to your delight, we realize it's Party Bus USA going to Las Vegas, and and if only the bus had been clear about what type of bus it was, and I could have waited for the library bus that would come later.
Yeah.
But businesses and humans and people, we're not very good at being honest with each other or even ourselves. And so, we aren't very clear about sort of what type of bus we are and our destination where we're going to. And so people end up on the wrong buses. And this is why we see people moving jobs and changing jobs, and they're never quite happy and blah 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 blah, because they never really knew what they were getting into. And that has a huge cost, doesn't it? I mean, I think it's between 50% and 150% of someone's salary to replace them.
Yep.
Now, you could save yourself a lot of money by just being clearer about who you are as an organization.
Yes.
Attract the right people to you.
Yeah, and that's something tangible and measurable, isn't it? And this is one of the things that I loved speaking to you, was the fact that you have actually developed a measurement system, because it's these things are easy to talk about and easy to say, yes, it's a good idea. And we're going through this struggle in the tech space at the moment, trying to bring in this concept of experience level agreements. But you have actually done a lot of work in terms of measuring experience. And I think it would be great to talk about that. And again, for those of you watching us live, jump in if you've got questions for John. Really recommend you ask them while you're watching. But yeah, talk to us a little bit more about.
So just, I'll show you the dashboard in a minute and what we measure. But just before I do that, businesses are just groups of human beings, right, working together for the benefit of another group of human beings I happen to call their customers. What we were measuring to sort of define our success was a byproduct of that, which was money. And I was always, don't get me wrong, I think measuring money is important, but it's like, this is coming at the end of the chain of events of all the work we're doing.
Yep.
Plus the staff really know what's going on. Like, they really know, like, and they're not honest about it. They never tell the leaders. And so the leaders have a very different perspective of what's going on. And if we could get some kind of insight here, it would be amazing. And that's what we went about to build. So let me just see if I can show this.
Just while you bring that up, I mean, my husband is ex-Navy, and he has the same experience. Everybody says, why is morale terrible on ship? So you ask the people at the lowest level of the command chain, and they give you all these reasons, and then it goes up a layer and it gets sanitized a little bit, and it goes up and up and up and up, and until eventually it gets to the one person in charge, and the message that comes through is everything is brilliant. And it's a real challenge. And I think there's cultures as well where it's more or less acceptable to say it, actually. things aren't good.
Yeah, and so we see this a lot, and we'll demonstrate this in a second. But what the coefficient platform does really well is it highlights these disconnects between different teams. So we measure across 19 categories that we analyze from the latest business thinking, the corporate governance codes, and what have you, and then we worked with the organization Mind to come up with these 5 mental health categories, because mental health plays such a massive part. And actually, as you know, numbers really only mean something if you can compare them to something else. So when we filter through this data, we can see actually that partners, for example, in this organization, of which there are 15, are scoring, everything's green. They think everything's fantastic. They're scoring really high. I mean, their scores for integrity are at 97%. But when we compare them with management, for example, and I've done this before, so I know I'm going to see a different picture, very different picture. We can see actually it's like a different company, and so where we see these disconnects between different groups is where we see things like poor communication, negative energy, inefficiencies, staff turnover, loss of income. But unless you know these gaps exist, it's really difficult to do something about them. And I'm a big fan of Alan Mulally, who you may have heard of. He was the CEO of Boeing, and then he became the CEO of Ford. And he's got a lovely quote where he says, "The data sets you free, because you don't have to guess.
Yes.
If you've got data, you don't have to guess." And we spend a lot of time trying to collect data in the right way, because when you're trying to get data out of humans, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
To display it in a way that makes it really easy to use. So, and the other thing we can do here is we can actually drill down into some of these categories. So it can be, you can get quite granular. So here, we can see clearly that these people are scoring things like, are their good work and effort being acknowledged by their colleagues? No. By their leaders? No. People aren't being civilly respectful. There's no support measures in place. They don't feel emotionally safe at work. Then you can actually start addressing these things, and of course track your progress over time. And the other thing we do here is we've got some other visual ways of displaying the same data, so it becomes really clear which groups that you want to start talking to. And I've got to be very clear here. Data, it doesn't sort of tell you what to do next. That's what data doesn't do. That it just gives you insights to what's going on. And so we always work with human consultants and coaches to translate the data into something meaningful for the companies that we're working with. But here, straight away we can see each of these bubbles is a category. We can see here are the partners, and all of their scores are above those from management and administration. So that's the obvious next question there is, well, partners, what do you know that you're not telling everyone else? Because it's a very different picture. Or go to management and say, well, what are you experiencing that actually the partners don't know? What's going on here? So, and then we can also offer comparisons with. This is slightly misleading because this is our dummy data, but we can offer you comparisons with other organizations in our data pool and within your sector. And the idea isn't you just do this once, you do it again over time, again and again, and you can see how you're trending against the averages.
Yeah. And I think, again, thinking about this from an IT perspective, it would be fascinating to link this to some of the data that we normally track in terms of, enabling people to do their job. Do they have the kit they need? What's the support like? Because all of that will be a small factor of this experience, but it will absolutely be a factor of that experience. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, how do people react to this data?
They love it. All of our customers love it. I was being a bit sort of silly then, but no, it's really insightful data. So we get we either have the management team saying, "Brilliant! I knew in my gut this is what was kind of going on. I could feel it, and now I've got data and graphs and numbers to prove it, and I can start doing something about it." Or we have leaders saying, well, what the heck, I had no idea. And
Yes.
but then at least they can start doing something about it. And
Mhm.
where I saw those partners, we see this all the time. Leaders, managers, all up here,
Mm.
staff are down here somewhere, and it's really just poor communication in a lot of senses.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, well, I hope my customers are happy with the
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
Um,
I ask because I remember some years ago we did some work with a council, and part of that was collecting some anonymous feedback about the quality of IT services. And when we took that into the senior leadership team, they spent an awful lot of time trying to guess who'd said what. They
yeah,
weren't particularly interested in the content, but they were thinking, who said this? Who doesn't like us? And that
yeah.
was, that was I think that was a reflection of their culture
So
overall.
it's just human nature, isn't it? You
Mm.
kind of want to know these things. We are very, very hot on anonymity. So we don't collect names. We don't collect email addresses. We don't know who's answered the survey. It's just a bunch of numbers that comes in.
Mhm.
We don't allow you to drill down on the dashboard below 3 um, data points.
Mhm.
The It's really, really important that people feel safe and
Yes.
secure, that they can answer the questions as honestly as they can. I mean, we know
Mm.
there's so much evidence out there that humans are very rarely honest with each other, let alone ourselves.
Mhm.
So we it's imperative that they feel safe. Sometimes I actually have staff email me to say, I've done the survey, can you confirm you've received it?
Mhm.
And I have to say, no, I can't. I can confirm I've received a survey from someone. um,
Yes.
I can't tell you whether it's yours or not.
Yes. And are there any sort of, I guess, risk factors that you've noticed over time? So does is there any correlation with, say, size of organization or age of organization? Is there anything people could look to and think we might be in danger of some poor performance here because of the type of organization that we are, or is it very different from business to business?
It's really different to business, and I don't think we can pinpoint any sectors that are worse or better than others. I think it comes down to the leaders often, or the
Mm.
owners of the business, or how things are run. The best scores we've seen or the best businesses we've seen are where people are aligned. So it
Yes.
doesn't matter whether the scores are kind of good or bad. It's like, if the scores are poor and there's a problem with communication, everyone's saying there's a problem with communication, and it's okay
Mhm.
because we're working on it, right?
Yep.
Um, where we see, I think, the worst functioning businesses is where we see these disconnects, where people, they know what they know, but they don't share what they know, and
Mhm.
you end up with these siloed teams. Um, yeah, so that's what we see a lot of.
Yeah. And how, uh, I guess the first part is you mentioned that you work with consultants. So what actions typically follow from this? And then how often do you resurvey, or is the survey something that is ongoing?
No, so we recommend to resurvey 3 times a year, but it's up to
Hmm.
the companies. Every company has their own rhythm and flow, so some are doing it twice a year. Um, we work with consultants; they interpret the data. The data really leads to the next round of better questions.
Yep.
So the consultant will take over that piece of work, and then actually the plan of action. It's very hard to say what you need to do because it's always so bespoke.
Hmm.
As you know, there's a million different companies with a million different cultures and a million different leaders, and so what's going to work for you isn't necessarily what's going to work for someone else.
Yep.
Um, so, but there are some broad things that we would recommend. So sharing the data, I think, is really, really important. Letting your staff know what's going on,
Hmm.
what the scores are. Don't be like, if you scored poorly, that's like, be honest about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think most people, I genuinely believe that most people want to wake up every morning and go to a job where they feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves, that they're working together with other people to serve their customers. And they, like, people are sensible, right? They know life isn't perfect. They know they're on a journey of improvement. And isn't it better to enjoy that journey together with others rather than feel out of the loop? Or that you're just that cog in the machine and management aren't talking to you and not even listening to you. Oh yeah, do that survey, but we're going to stick that in a drawer and not engage with you. So I mean, that's the worst. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
And so our surveys, it's a bunch of sort of agree with or disagree with statements, but there's also like a free text form at the end. Just tell us whatever you like about your company. And I mean, that stuff is just golden. When you ask your staff, they will tell you everything you need to know. Who's great, who's not, what's working, what isn't. It's really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah, and I think we experience the same again in IT with the fact that you ask people for improvement ideas, suggestions, feedback, but if you don't do anything with that, the next time they won't engage, and that's almost worse than not asking at all, because you gave them this illusion of moving forward. But a lot of it links to as well organizational change management, which I think from a business or an IT perspective is still one of the most challenging areas of what we do. And we, one of the annual surveys that we do in the SIAM space, it's the number one challenge every single year is organizational change management. And I think underestimating the amount of time and effort that needs to go into that for it to work.
Yeah, but we live in a changing world, don't we? And it's changing ever more quickly. I was at a talk recently in London, and the chap, I can't remember who it was now, but said, the rate of change is as fast as it's ever been, and it's never going to be this slow again. And I think it's a very, very different world we live in compared to our parents, who would sort of like have a job for life and would sort of come home at 5 and not think about work again until the morning. But we're expected now to be a lot more productive. There's so many amazing tools out there to help us speed things along, and it's the change is happening with ever more speed.
Absolutely. So John, we're coming up to the end of the time. It always flies, but the Monergy flow I love, absolutely love, and this concept of actionable data rather than nice ideas is hugely powerful. Do you have any top tips that you want to share? Are there any resources or websites you'd like to point people towards to learn a bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so thank you. So, well, we've got a website, coefficient-solutions.com. We wanted it to be as catchy as possible. So please go and have a look at that. Look me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you there. I mean, top tips. I mean, I just think, we're surrounded by data and technology now, and we think that it can kind of fix everything. But please don't forget that actually its only purpose is to try to improve the lives of humans. And actually, we human beings sit at the center of everything. So let's not forget them.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message. For our August episode, we are still scheduling our guest for that one, but just a little reminder that on the 21st of September, we've got a special panel episode where we're going to be talking about tech ethics. So looking at the impact of artificial intelligence on the voiceover industry specifically, but chatting a little bit about what that means from a service design and a service management perspective as well. So mark your diaries for that one. That is going to be a really, really good discussion. For today, thank you to everybody who's been watching us. John, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit more about what you do. It was really, really fascinating, and it certainly made me think a little bit more about what we do in my business, and I hope everybody else finds it useful as well. So thank you so much, John. Really appreciate you being here with us. Thank you to everybody who was watching, and we will see you on the next episode of the ITSM Crowd.